80 years. 80 years is the span of a long life, a near century of human history unfolding above ground, punctuated by technological leaps and mundane routine. Yet, beneath the perfectly manicured lawn of a seemingly unremarkable suburban home, nestled in the quiet, unassuming county of Surrey, England, lay a secret that defied the relentless geometry of time, a relic of history, heavy with potential danger and historical weight, perfectly preserved in its subterranean slumber. This was not the discovery of a simple lost coin or a discarded piece of vintage pottery. This was a direct, tangible connection to the height of global conflict, an unblinking witness to the darkest days of the 1940s, found not by determined archaeologists on a remote battlefield, but by a homeowner simply installing a new drainage system. The initial contact was metallic, dense, and oddly resistant to the shovel's impact, far deeper than any typical construction debris.
At first, it was dismissed as a boulder, perhaps ancient bedrock, but when the edge was finally scraped clean, revealing the smooth, dark curve of riveted steel, the homeowner's routine task instantly morphed into an emergency archaeological operation, signaling an immediate and profound interruption of modern, peaceful existence. The precise location was a modest plot of land in what was historically known as the crucial defensive perimeter around London during the Battle of Britain and the subsequent Blitz. This region, although now characterized by neat rows of semi-detached homes and blooming rhododendrons, was, during the years of 1940 through 1944, a constant aerial thoroughfare and a target-rich environment. It lay dangerously close to several decommissioned auxiliary airfields and crucial industrial targets that frequently drew the attention of the Luftwaffe.
The soil itself, a mix of dense clay and gravel, acted as a near-perfect time capsule, creating anaerobic conditions that drastically slowed the corrosion and decomposition of materials buried beneath the surface layer. The initial fear, of course, was unexploded ordnance, UXO. England remains one of the most heavily bombed nations in history, and discoveries of live ordnance, ranging from small incendiaries to massive parachute mines, are still tragically common 80 years later. The sheer size of the object suggested something formidable, perhaps a 500-pound bomb or a substantial section of a downed aircraft. The tension surrounding the object was amplified by the lack of immediate identification. It was too regular, too structurally complete to be mere wreckage, yet too massive to be a forgotten tool. The police were called, followed quickly by the specialized units of the Royal Engineers Explosive Ordnance Disposal, or EOD.
The arrival of the highly trained technicians, clad in their protective gear and carrying sophisticated detection equipment, transformed the quiet suburban street into a makeshift military staging ground. Neighbors, accustomed only to the gentle hum of lawnmowers and distant traffic, watched in stunned silence as the drama unfolded, acutely aware that decades of normalcy might have been resting inches above catastrophe. What exactly was this relic? Who placed it there? And why was it never recorded, recovered, or neutralized? These questions hung heavy in the humid summer air, fueling the escalating curiosity of the experts and the fear of the residents. Was it a failed cache of Allied supplies, perhaps buried hastily during a panicked retreat or preparation? Or was it something far more sinister and complex, a relic of German origin, deeply embedded and forgotten in the chaos?
The excavation process was agonizingly slow and meticulous, designed to minimize any movement that might destabilize the potential device. The EOD team employed high-frequency ground-penetrating radar to map the object's full dimensions before committing to manual digging. They soon confirmed that the object extended vertically roughly 3 feet below the surface and horizontally for nearly 6 feet, an imposing, elongated cylinder shielded by a dense layer of hardened mud and rust. As the dirt was carefully brushed away, revealing the item beneath, the initial anxiety regarding a simple, destabilized bomb began to shift into deep historical intrigue. The object was clad in a thick bituminous wrapping, seemingly applied for water resistance and secured with heavy-gauge wire. This indicated a purposeful burial, not a rapid crash or a casual discard. The material was thick steel, heavy and robust, suggesting industrial or military engineering, and beneath the layers of sediment, faint, almost obliterated paint markings began to appear, a deep olive drab, the universal color of wartime machinery. The experts, drawing on decades of experience with wartime archaeology and ordnance identification, began to piece together the fragments of evidence. The structure did not conform to the standard shape of British or American aerial bombs commonly dropped on the region. Its robust cylindrical design, paired with the unique locking mechanism observed near one end, suggested a more specialized purpose. This object had been intentionally concealed, perhaps intended for future retrieval, or hidden in haste following an urgent, undocumented event. It is crucial to understand the context of such survivals.
Unexploded ordnance continues to plague Western Europe. Estimates suggest that millions of tons of bombs were dropped, and a significant percentage, upwards of 10% in some cases, failed to detonate. However, for a relic of this size and preservation level to lie directly beneath a developed modern property for 8 decades without detection is statistically extraordinary, a profound pattern interruption in the steady, planned progression of suburban development. The site had been redeveloped extensively in the post-war era. How had this immense metal mass escaped the foundations of previous structures, the laying of utility lines, and the countless small adjustments of modern life? It spoke to a deliberate, deep concealment in a pre-existing dip or hole that had been carefully backfilled and disguised. Finally, after merely 12 hours of tense, focused work under temporary floodlights, the artifact was sufficiently exposed to allow for conclusive identification.
The rust was carefully treated with specialized solvents, revealing clearer markings. Near the base, etched into the thick steel casing, were 3 distinct, deeply stamped symbols. These were not standard issue markings for British, American, or even Soviet equipment. They were Germanic in origin, highly specific to the manufacturing nomenclature used by the Third Reich's heavy industry during the war's middle phase. The great revelation came moments later, confirming the object's identity, rewriting the history of this small patch of Surrey, and elevating the discovery from a local hazard to an international historical treasure. This was not a simple bomb, but something far rarer and strategically significant, a sealed transport container designed to protect specialized military equipment or documentation from water and shock. Based on the dimensions and the stamped codes, the EOD chief confirmed it was a German Tarnkiste, a deception crate, designed specifically for clandestine delivery or recovery. This particular model, judging by the depth and thickness of the container walls, was meant to carry highly sensitive communications gear, perhaps cryptographic components, or, more sensationally, a significant archive of classified documents. The container itself was inert in terms of explosion risk, but its contents were potentially far more volatile in terms of historical impact. The steel casing was sealed, fused shut against the elements for 80 years. Inside, protected by the clay and the thick metal shell, lay secrets buried at the very beginning of the Second World War. The Tarnkiste had survived the Blitz, the post-war reconstruction, and the entire span of the Cold War, waiting patiently beneath the mundane rhythm of human life.
The historical payoff was immediate and immense. This crate held the potential to unlock a specific, likely highly classified, German operation linked directly to this area of southern England, an operation that had remained completely unknown to historians for decades. This relic was not a piece of debris. It was a captured moment in time, a historical message in a bottle of unimaginable significance, and its existence fundamentally changes our understanding of the secret war fought over Britain's skies and soil. The discovery immediately raises a flurry of compelling questions that demand deeper investigation. Why was this classified German crate buried on English soil? Was it deposited by a downed reconnaissance team, a saboteur, or perhaps planted by a local collaborator? And what precise documents or technology, so vital that they required a heavy steel deception crate, have survived intact inside? We must next turn to the forensic analysis of the surrounding soil, the exhaustive cataloging of the crate's exterior, and the excruciating, delicate process of opening this 80-year-old vault. Do not miss the dramatic unfolding of the next stage of this incredible investigation. Join us in Part 2, where we delve into the high-stakes procedure of breaching the sealed container, analyze the astonishing contents revealed after 80 years of darkness, and finally uncover the identity and ultimate fate of the individual responsible for burying this critical piece of World War II history in a quiet English backyard. The transformation of a quiet, unassuming suburban lawn into a critical military exclusion zone was instantaneous and absolute. The initial fear that grips the neighborhood was palpable, vibrating across the hastily erected barricades like a low-frequency hum.
The object, still partially embedded in the damp soil, became the epicenter of an intricate, highly pressurized operation. This was no longer a matter of curious archaeology. This was the methodical dismantling of 80 years of hazardous history. The Specialized Ordnance Disposal Unit, or EOD team, that arrived treated the area with surgical precision. Their movements were calibrated, their faces masks of trained composure. They did not rush. Haste, in their field, is a fatal error. The cylindrical casing, revealed now to be approximately 3 feet long and sealed with heavy-duty rivets and what appeared to be pitch or early industrial resin, a sophisticated attempt at hermetic sealing, was the primary focus. The core conflict remained. Was the object designed to explode or merely to conceal? Standard munitions of the Second World War adhered to predictable contours. This object did not.
Its shape suggested intentional burial and long-term storage, hinting at clandestine operational use rather than simple discarding. The EOD commander authorized the deployment of non-invasive detection methods, utilizing high-resolution ground-penetrating radar and sophisticated magnetometers to analyze the internal composition without physical intrusion. The hours dragged on, each minute punctuated by the quiet, methodical scraping of tools and the hushed communications between the specialists. The analysis provided a crucial pattern interrupt. The density readings were inconsistent with a purely explosive filler, such as TNT or cordite, while pockets of metallic components were detected, suggesting internal mechanisms. There were also larger, softer areas. This strongly indicated the presence of organic or composite material, paper, cloth, or perhaps preserved foodstuffs.
The tension eased slightly from the immediate threat of detonation to the high probability of a chemical hazard, or perhaps a historic time capsule. This realization, however, opened a new set of risks. If the contents were historical records, their preservation depended entirely on the integrity of the casing. Breaching it incorrectly could lead to rapid degradation, or worse, the release of toxic preservation agents or gases accumulated over decades. The homeowner, Thomas, stood outside the perimeter, watching his small patch of earth become a stage for international historical resolution. He was acutely aware that the discovery had transformed a simple suburban existence into a direct link with the deep, complex world of wartime espionage and special operations. This was the moment the open loops of Part 1 began to cinch shut. Why here? What forgotten mission necessitated such a deeply buried, meticulously sealed cache? The decision was made. The artifact was too delicate and its potential contents too valuable to risk an on-site, uncontrolled breach. Utilizing specialized lifting gear, the heavy, waterlogged cylinder was meticulously freed from the earth. The soil that clung to it was carefully collected. It would later be analyzed for trace elements, attempting to date the precise time of burial through soil stratification forensics. The object was transported under heavy guard to a secure military laboratory designed specifically for handling volatile historical artifacts. This move represented the second hook in the narrative. The danger was contained, yes, but the mystery was now intensified. The object was no longer just a backyard menace. It was a sealed box containing 80 years of wartime silence, and the world was about to listen to its story. The climax unfolded in the sterile environment of the lab, far from the suburban streets that once obscured it.
Forensic engineers, historians, and ordnance experts gathered. Instead of explosive cutting charges, they utilized precision diamond wire saws, operating in a pressurized chamber saturated with inert nitrogen gas to prevent oxygen contamination upon opening. The breaching process was slow, measured in millimeter increments. When the heavy steel casing finally yielded and was carefully prized open, the immediate surroundings were hit not by an explosion, but by a powerful, musty aroma, a smell of preserved metal, long stagnant air, and chemically treated fabrics. The revelation was stunning. The container was indeed a highly specialized survival and intelligence cache. It was not a bomb, but a lifeline, intended for a special agent or a small deployed military team. The contents, remarkably preserved due to the efficacy of the 1940s-era sealing resins and the stable conditions underground, offered a comprehensive snapshot of clandestine operations in late 1944.
Inside, nestled amongst heavy waterproofing material, were several key items that instantly rewrote a small portion of local wartime history. Firstly, several tins of emergency rations, still factory sealed, were present. These provided immediate, physical evidence of the cache's vintage and purpose. Secondly, complex radio equipment, specifically disassembled components for a portable spy radio, identified as a variant of the B-2 briefcase set, common to both the British Special Operations Executive, SOE, and the American Office of Strategic Services, OSS. Alongside these components were detailed encrypted frequency charts and sophisticated cipher pads. But the true historical payload lay in the third and most crucial discovery: a large, bound, and meticulously detailed logbook protected inside a wax-sealed canvas pouch. The logbook, written in precise English script with several coded entries interspersed, identified the cache not merely as a survival kit, but as a critical waypoint marker alpha. The entries revealed that an Allied Special Operations team had penetrated the area, which was then rural farmland, not suburban sprawl, with the objective of coordinating the rescue or extraction of a reconnaissance pilot whose plane had gone down weeks prior. The precise location of Thomas's backyard had been chosen due to a distinct, large oak tree, still standing today, that served as a recognizable aerial landmark, a designated drop zone or rally point for a follow-up operation. The final, decisive entries in the logbook detailed the preparation of the cache, its burial depth, and the intended retrieval date, a date that passed without incident, indicating the mission was abruptly scrubbed, likely due to a change in the tactical situation, the capture of the pilot, or the premature discovery of the team. The operation was aborted, the agents withdrawn, and the buried evidence, the sealed lifeline intended for the next phase, was simply forgotten, lost to the bureaucratic shuffle of a rapidly moving front. The object was a relic not of conflict, but of cold abandonment. The conclusion was definitive. The buried relic was a WWII Special Operations cache, designed for intelligence and sustainment, placed by Allied forces 80 years prior. The consequence for the homeowner was profound. His backyard was declared safe, and while the physical object was removed, the legacy remained. The cache, meticulously cataloged, was transferred to the National Military Archives, providing historians with tangible, material evidence of covert operations far removed from the primary battle lines. Thomas's property became an officially recognized minor historical site, the location of Waypoint Marker Alpha. The payoff was the narrative closure.
The buried relic was not an engine of destruction, but a forgotten key to a forgotten mission, a testament to the unseen gears of war. This discovery serves as a vital reminder that history is often buried just inches beneath the surfaces of our ordinary lives. Every patch of land, particularly in areas near major wartime supply routes or strategic points, holds potential secrets. The deep earth acts as the ultimate preserver, locking away transient operational materials like these specialized caches for decades, until chance or a determined shovel brings them back into the light. The material science of these caches is in itself fascinating. The Allied forces, particularly SOE, were pioneers in creating methods for deep earth long-term preservation. They utilized early forms of high-density polyethylene and specialized bituminous pitch, compounds designed to withstand decades of subterranean moisture and microbial activity.
The sheer effort exerted to ensure a radio and a notebook could survive 80 years underground speaks volumes about the criticality of the intelligence they were meant to support. The B-2 radio components found in the cache, often dubbed the suitcase radio or spy radio, were notoriously difficult to operate, but offered the crucial ability to send encrypted transmissions over vast distances. Their recovery provides historians with intact examples of the operational equipment used by agents operating under extreme duress. Furthermore, the logbook itself is a treasure trove. It details not only mission parameters, but also the daily fears, challenges, and coded communications of agents behind enemy lines, adding invaluable human texture to the dry facts of military history. These artifacts move beyond statistics and place the finder directly in contact with the personal sacrifices made during the conflict. The ultimate fate of the relic is one of preservation and education.
After extensive stabilization and conservation, the cache and its contents will likely be displayed, offering museum visitors a direct window into the covert side of the Second World War. If this story sparks a flicker of curiosity about the ground beneath your own feet, we urge you to consult local historical societies and military archives. Many communities possess overlooked records detailing wartime activities, everything from emergency landing fields to temporary communication posts. You never know what forgotten waypoint marker might be quietly waiting just below your garden patch. The greatest discoveries often start not with complex technology, but with simple, inquisitive digging.